I'm Timothy Vigil, and this is Just Another Word podcast, the Word of the Day podcast for storytellers. L is for liminal. The liminal space is the threshold between one's previous way of structuring their identity, time, or community, and a new way. Richard Rohr. There's a specific feeling you get when you walk through an airport at 3 a.m. Shops are closed, corridors are basically empty, and the space feels odd. You feel like you're in a space you shouldn't be. Like it shouldn't exist without the crowds and the noise and the constant announcements. You enter into a location that is defined by its busyness, and now it's something else. You've entered that odd in-between state when it isn't what it is supposed to be. This is the core idea of what a liminal space is. We can dig deeper and think of liminality and how it can work in our stories in a couple of interesting ways. The word liminal comes from Latin, from the word limen, which literally means threshold or doorway. You all have experienced plenty of these. You pass through them every day. Doorways are just portals to something else. But you don't live in one. You pass through it to get from your kitchen into your dining room. But I think it's important to recognize that in storytelling, unlike your life where walking through a doorway is a nothing moment, the most important parts of a journey for a character often happen while they're on the threshold, while they're walking through the doorway. They're no longer who they were, but they're not yet who they're going to become. One of the key ways that liminal is used in storytelling all the time is the unsettling vibe. It's not a surprise, or it shouldn't be to anyone, that liminal spaces have become this popular aesthetic online. They're inherently unsettling. When a space is stripped of its purpose, it creates a sense of uncanny dread. I'm reminded of the video game series Five Nights at Freddy's, where you play as someone who's at a Chuck E. Cheese-like restaurant overnight. And admittedly, animatronics do try and kill you, but the vibe itself is creepy, it's unsettling, and it draws you in with its liminality. As storytellers, we can use this vibe, even if we're not trying to be a horror like Five Nights at Freddy's is, to signal to the reader that the rules of the reality they're used to are thinning. When a character enters a liminal space, they're leaving the safety of the normal world. Even if that liminal space is just a office building at night, they're somewhere where they shouldn't be, or somewhere where they shouldn't be then. It's an odd thing, but this could also be a place where ghosts live, someone entering a cemetery at night. Whatever it is, this is a place where transformation happens, where things go from being one thing to another. And characters in these spaces, but feeling out of place in them, can have a really interesting time. While the physical spaces are evocative, the most powerful use of liminality is, like oftentimes, in the internal arc of a character. Most stories have a second act, one that is essentially a liminal state. They're going from the place they were called at the beginning to what the end of the book is going to be, the new person that is going to come out of these experiences. But the second act, the part of the book which is usually about half of it, is this liminal space where your protagonist has left home, but they haven't moved on to their new identity yet. You can make this middle section feel liminal. You can make it unsettling, transitional, and heighten tension. It's not necessarily going to be good in every book, but it's good in a lot of them, because regardless if you're trying to create a unsettling vibe, it is important to remember your character is in a liminal space. They are going through a transition, and they should be feeling things about that transition. The changes that are happening in them need to be addressed for a reader to understand that this is having an impact on the character. Because if the story that's happening isn't having an impact on the character, if they aren't going through something and changing, if this isn't a liminal space for them, then it's not going to impact a reader in the way that you probably want your novel to. Using a physical liminal space to mirror a character's internal change can be really powerful. If a character is deciding whether to quit their job, have that conversation in a parking garage or an elevator. They're in this in-between setting, and it reinforces the in-between nature of their life. Using setting like this can help give shorthand to your reader and have them understand and maybe feel at a more visceral level. See, in mythology, thresholds are often guarded as well. And so we should be thinking about this when we're thinking about the liminal spaces our characters are entering. This is because the liminal space is a place of power and vulnerability. If your character is in flux, they're at their most susceptible to influence. But that influence could be positive for them, and it could be negative for them. So think about the way that this space that your character is in is being guarded, whether that is physically or mentally or emotionally. There are things that are trying to stop your character from moving forward. And this is more than just the antagonist of your story. It's important to think that your character is facing other obstacles that are blocking them from moving from who they were to who they need to be, other than the antagonist. Often things that were in their old life can be the very things that are blocking them while they are in this liminal space. Ultimately, liminality reminds us that the in-between isn't just a gap to be crossed. It's a destination in its own right. It's the breath between the word and the echo. As a storyteller, don't rush your characters through the story, through the doorway, and through their liminality. Let them linger in the hallway, in the door, on the threshold. Let them feel the unease of the transition. For it's only in the liminal space that we truly shed our old selves and prepare for the world on the other side. Your character needs this time. They're in the cocoon. They're going from the caterpillar to the butterfly. But what happens in the cocoon is the meat of your story. So the liminal space is where we live as storytellers. We need to remember this so that we can take it and use it to its most effective. You have been listening to Just Another Word podcast with your host, Timothy Vigil. For more information, go to timothywigil.com.